When sampling for DTSC site closure, it is often required to measure the downhole vacuum on your system. This is due to the fact that if you are dealing with low porosity soils such as sand, silt, or clay, there may be a buildup of negative pressure at your sample point. In the DTSC guidance, it states that at no point when sampling should the negative pressure of the well point on the system exceed -7 inches of mercury. The logic behind this is that at that point you are no longer sampling what would be considered vapor, and you may be stripping compounds that had been adsorbed onto the soil. This usually is triggered by soil conditions such as silt, sand, or clay with very low porosity and thus very low volume available. When doing this, a secondary gauge must be utilized, and it is important you inform the lab of that requirement when placing your equipment order. I'm going to demonstrate this now with this setup. Here you have a standard flow controller with the secondary gauge attached. The secondary gauge is reading -inches of mercury. The first step is to attach my well line. Similar to before, I use a nut and ferrule and give it a 1/4 turn. In this demonstration, I will use this to show what it would look like if you are dealing with low porosity conditions. Once my well line is connected, at this point, I will connect my can. After connecting my can, what I'll be looking for is to make sure that the can is pulling sample, and right now it currently is without any obstruction. Thus, my secondary gauge is reading 0, and my can is currently sampling. While you're sampling, to monitor the secondary gauge, you want to keep an eye out for any rise. If I block my sample pathway, you can see that quickly this gauge catches it. If you get to above 7 inches of mercury, it's important to discontinue sampling and let your sample point re-equilibrate back to its initial pressure.